Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome to High Strangeness. I'm Tony, and this is the place where we talk about all things strange and unexpected in our reality. Today, we are doing another one of our film reviews, and Ron and I have run across this really cool series called the Alien Disclosure Files, and this is episode number 2, which we're going to talk about today. So, once again, I have a returning voice, Ron Mason, with me today. Ron, how are you doing, buddy? How's it going?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Fantastic. I had a good day at work today. A little tired, but yeah, I had some coffee, and I'm ready to roll. This one is going to be fun.
It is, and we've got these action-packed episodes that we are presenting to people, right? They don't allow you to fall asleep. They're so quick and action-packed.
Yeah, this one right here. This is right. This is right up my alley. I can't wait to talk about this one.
And just so people know, 23-minute episode, another 23-minute episode. All of these, I think, are about 23 minutes, 8 episodes in the Alien Disclosure Files. And today, we're going to cover the one called Take Me to Your Leader, episode number 2. So, we talked about this in our last quick review of episode 1, but I loved the narrator's voice. His name is, I found out, John B. Wells. Mm-hmm. And man, he was like the Darth Vader version of narrators, the way his voice was and everything. Didn't you think?
Yeah. That's funny. His last name's Wells. When we talked about the War of the Worlds last time, H.G. Wells, right. J.B. Wells, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the stupid.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But, yeah. He does have that
so
voice.
People need to, when they hear this, they're going to go, I mean, I'd like to hear what people think, because they'll probably be like, yeah, his voice really kind of puts you in the mood for this. So, all right, take me to your leader. In this episode, they talk about presidents and how some of them have even seen things in the sky, and they go into some of that, right? This isn't just people that are not seeing things. I mean, there's a number of presidents that have actually admitted to seeing something in the sky or saying that they saw a UFO. And they talk about this in this video, which I think is interesting because people don't know some of that, right? Were you surprised to see some of the names that they had for presidents and stuff?
For Reagan and Carter, was there a third? Was it Eisenhower? Reagan and Carter, no, I've heard that before. I remember especially Carter. Eisenhower, I think there was an old movie that kind of hit on that. Was it Roswell? Was it a movie called Roswell with
I'm trying to think.
Back in the 80s. I think it was in the 80s or early 90s. There was a movie called Roswell. It had Charlie Sheen play a small part in it. It was a pretty good made-for-TV movie. I think they hit on Eisenhower or Truman. I think it was Eisenhower, yeah. So, no, I had heard that. I didn't know, as much they shared more information than I was aware of, though. But I had
and I really love the way they, as they're kind of going through it and doing it at a pretty quick pace, they're also giving you visuals and pictures and different things like that, which I think they've really kind of hit the sweet spot on how to do that quickly with information to keep you engaged. I thought that was pretty cool. So one of the things that I think a big theme kind of the film is, there is some group that's trying to keep this information from us and from our elected officials as well. And I felt like that was kind of an undertone for a lot of this episode, which is there's somebody at some level or a group that is really kind of controlling the information. Did you get the same feel on that?
Yes. A structure of some kind, of a group of people, of powerful people that control our media, probably our leaders, policies, everything. They decide who goes to war, who wins, who loses. They profit. They don't care. They don't care about sovereignty of any kind. I think they really I think they kind of hit on that a little bit, that these
Yeah.
people, they don't care about you or me. They care about them and their big fat wallets and their power.
Yep. And they've got some kind of a plan that they're trying to just control the information that's going out there. I thought that was pretty interesting. There was a pretty decent not a narrator, but he did a contributor to in the film. His name was Joseph Garner. He's a guy with the round glasses. I thought he did a good job. I mean, he was a pleasant guy to listen to, very informative, shared some pretty good information. But do you remember the Reagan 1983 Star Wars speech or program that he talked about that? I remember that. I actually remember at the time when that came out, it was like, wait, what? Star Wars?
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it was interesting because as not on this particular film, but I was watching something else about Reagan recently, and there was this whole dynamic about the Star Wars program that really intimidated and upset Gorbachev and the Soviet Union. And so, I think they were nervous about what was Star Wars, right? What was the Star Wars program that the United States had in place?
Well, it was very bold and, forward thinking. And like they alluded to there, Reagan probably didn't fully realize what he had there.
Yeah.
The possibilities. Because the next war was going to be fought possibly in our atmosphere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the film spent some time there. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought one of the coolest sections of the film is when they talk about when Reagan and Gorbachev take a walk. They're at this summit. They decide to take a walk, go outside, and go to one of the cottages or something out there. And what Ronald Reagan said to him, I thought was really interesting. He says something along the lines of, if we were attacked from somebody outside, would you stand up and help us or protect us or help us? And Gorbachev says, yes. And then Reagan goes, us too. I thought that was pretty amazing. Like, that was like a behind-the-scenes conversation.
Yeah.
That who would know about that, right? So it was really cool.
And you wonder if that's still the same, if the world is not so so torn apart that it still wouldn't be that way. Like, for instance, Iran and Israel, or we're the great Satan according to Iran, right? So would they put that aside, and help defend mankind? I mean, I hope so, right? You would think that all that wouldn't matter at the moment. We can go back to that afterwards.
Yeah. It is true. It says a lot about the nature of society, the worldwide society. Would we stand up and protect despite those differences?
Or would we cut a deal?
All right.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, let's take a quick second here. I'm going to play a short video where Ronald Reagan speaks to the UN in 1987. And I think many people will remember this, but it's a good little minute video. Let's go ahead and play it.
We often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Well, Ron, what do you think? Do you remember that speech and when Reagan said that back in the 1987, I think it was?
Yeah, I think I was like 19 years old.
Yeah.
I had no idea what he was talking about. That was over. I mean, it sounded good, and I was Reagan was my first. It was my favorite president, right?
Yeah.
So anything Ronald said, I was on board with.
Yeah. Yeah, he was something else. In fact, I think it's
entertaining.
interesting. He was entertaining. I actually saw him in person when he was heading around and doing campaigning. And I was at a mall on the East Coast, and I literally was on the front row 5 to 10 feet away from him.
Oh, wow.
And I just kind of went, "Hey, buddy, what's up?" And he smiled at me.
Yeah. Times are just so different now, right?
Yeah.
You could literally completely 100% disagree with that president and still say, "Hey, that's my president. That's the president."
Right.
Right?
Right.
And now people will take a shot at him if they can.
It's been crazy.
It has been crazy. Times have changed.
Yeah, we need a little something in people's hearts to change some of this, because we're at a hard place here in society.
A good place to start would be with the media and with our leaders. Yeah, they could start that and change that narrative whenever they want to.
I agree. I totally agree. Well, take us to your leaders. Remember in the film, they actually spent some time with Jimmy Carter talking about his experiences in 1969. I guess he saw something. Go ahead.
May he rest in peace.
Yes, that's right. Yes, he just did. As of when we're recording, it happened just recently. So, yeah.
I disagree with the man on his politics, but what a nice guy he appeared to be, right? A genuinely nice guy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I have a friend. Well, actually, it's Bill. That's one of the other podcast co-hosts for this show, and he's watching everything about this, and he couldn't disagree more with the policy and the position of President Carter, but he was very intently watching all of this and really giving, just honoring just the position, the man, and all that. And and that's the way it should be, right? We should really look to those individuals and what they've accomplished and really respect that. So.
Well, the weight that's on their shoulders, not to think of nothing else, right? That's the hardest. That's the hardest job in the world.
Yeah. So, 1969, he admits that he's seen something. And in fact, I think it was a year or two later, he actually files an official report to report seeing a UFO. And they talk about that in the film, and I think it's pretty good. He also is one that wants to get more information about UFO. And do you remember who kind of denies him that information? They talk about this in the film.
Who was it that denied Jimmy Carter?
Yeah, right? CIA director at the time.
It wasn't George Bush Sr., was it?
It was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Right? I think that's interesting. George Bush Sr. probably knew a lot more than what probably any other president knew.
He was also the head of the CIA when Kennedy was killed, right? Or was he a part of the CIA? Maybe
I think he was part of the CIA.
He was part. Yeah, he wasn't running it. That's right.
Yeah. Crazy. But I thought that was interesting, and they do quickly give a little bit of that information in the film as well. Mm-hmm. They also spend some time talking about 1944, and I've got lights flicking and going crazy here, so I'm bothering the spirits. I think.
Uh-oh.
I know, right? 1944, President Roosevelt, the document was found somewhere that says we are not alone in this document from President Roosevelt. It's crazy to capture documentation that makes statements like this, but powerful at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's come to something more recent that the film talks about. 2018, where Trump makes a big announcement. And I remember this. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Space Force. I was like, what in the world? So, I don't know.
Well, I think that's if things continue, you really are having some things going on there with your lights.
I know. It's flickering like crazy here.
We have to do
People, I'm okay. I'm going to make it.
We're going to have to do an investigation. If things continue, down the same path. I mean, natural progression is to, eventually maybe go to Mars or go back to the moon at least to start with.
Yeah.
Space exploration. I mean, it's a gradual thing, but I mean, guys like Elon Musk and who knows what they've done at these top secret military base, underground facilities. I heard a guy in the 80s. I don't remember his name. Said that he knew somebody. He was talking about somebody that worked at one of these facilities. Said that if you knew what we had, what they right now, and this is back in the 80s. We're talking Star Wars.
Yeah.
That was how many years ago? 44 years ago, 45 years ago, 40, and the stealth fighter was old news when it finally got unveiled in the Gulf War.
Right.
Yeah. So
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I do think this is a piece that I think many people out there probably don't know about. It goes into two former space and defense ministers. 2020, Israel's Haim Eshed. Do you remember this? Where he comes and talks about what's going on. So he retires, right? He's an older gentleman, almost late 80s is where he was, is how old he was. And he comes out and says, oh, yeah, not only do we know about UAP, UFOs, we have agreements with them. And there's a Galactic Federation.
Yes.
That was crazy. So he comes out in an interview and he talks about that. And then you hear it for a little bit and then it goes away. But, yeah, I think he wrote a book, too, about this. So,
what agreements?
Right.
I mean, what did we agree to?
I want to know more about that.
Well, I mean, what do we have to offer?
Right.
Right. They have supposedly, their technology. What can we give them outside of obviously our resources, our people?
There you go. That's what has been claimed.
Right.
Right. What's been claimed is an agreement to allow for some abduction for study.
Like they've been doing. Apparently, right?
Right. That's a big one.
Agreements, yeah. Well, I didn't agree to anything.
Right.
You leave me out of this.
Yeah, you guys do it, right?
Yeah. Go ahead. Do what you want,
Ugh, crazy. So and then they also follow that up with the Canadian Paul Hillier, which also had the same type of a position. And he's been more vocal with interviews. I think he's passed away now. But, my gosh, he says the very same stuff. Two completely individuals, two different parts of the world, talking about a Galactic Federation and the same sorts of things. Crazy.
Well, I wonder what this Galactic or Federation would look like and why. I don't get it. I mean, I'm not saying, why would it be, why would these guys be, these other aliens, they wouldn't have to make an agreement.
Right.
I don't get that. I mean, when we invade a weaker country, we just, they kill and take and do whatever you got to do till you win, and then you come in and just establish your terms, and you're free in your will, upon the lesser, I would say, using our language, the lesser peoples who didn't have the ability. We overcame them by sheer numbers, will, force, military technology, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to start a federation with them. They're going to work. They're just going to do what I tell them to do. I'm going to plant my flag, and I'm going to try to make this as peaceful as possible if you play along.
Yeah.
But secret agreements, really, what do they have? They don't have nothing to gain for that. They can do whatever they want. at will, apparently, if that's if they really are that advanced. So
Right.
I'm just skeptical. I mean, I'm not saying there is. I
No,
just,
you're asking the very same questions I think people would, and that's great,
yeah,
right? And I think that's important. People need to think about these sorts of things. Like, is this a real claim? Like, what's going on?
yeah.
Now, it is interesting. There are some things out there. There's something called the Blue Planet Project that actually goes into this and talks about what those agreements are and stuff like that. So, once again, another opportunity for people to look into this stuff. But I like that you asked the question like that, because I do think people are going to think the same thing. Like, what do I have to offer them?
Yeah.
Right? As Earthlings. Yeah.
What are you on the playground, right? The big kid comes and takes your lunch money. What are you gonna do about it?
That's right. Shiny shoes.
Yeah, better not go tell the yard dude. You're gonna come back next time with a big black eye.
Right.
And no
Right.
lunch money. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the film, I know you'll remember that they also spent some time talking about President Eisenhower and Roosevelt, 50s and the 30s to the 40s, those two presidents. And they claim that there's a possibility that they had agreements also with some alien races. So, once again, we can't go into this in too much detail, but the film does go into it a little bit. And so I think it's exciting, and hopefully that whets the appetite for people to check that episode out, because I think it's pretty interesting.
it is.
Yeah. Military-industrial complex. Eisenhower does give a speech at the tail end of his presidency where he talks about beware of the military-industrial complex.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think he meant by that?
See, I'm trying to remember what information they gave us on the show. I mean, and so I'm speaking kind of ignorantly to exactly how the military-industrial complex works. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
It's been used a lot in the last 20 or so years. I think war, there's profit in war, right? Is that kind of what he's alluding to?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and it's big business. So
Right.
when the world economy kind of starts to, like you're seeing now, there's usually conflict worldwide. At least a few small skirmishes, sometimes a big one. And guess who benefits from that? The unknown people hiding behind the curtains. So,
Yeah.
that was my understanding of the military-industrial complex.
Right. I think that's right on. That definitely, I mean, it goes very deep, right? But that's definitely where they're referring to.
Okay.
I think it's funny. My father, who's passed away now for a while, when I was younger, man, I would call him a conspiracy theorist because he'd have a lot to say about a lot of things. But that is one of the things he said to me, and I remember being pretty young, and I was kind of not sure what he meant by it. But he says, whenever in history the world is in need to generate income and to change things, they will just make a war.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, as I've gotten older, seems there's a lot of truth to that. Really does seem like that's probably true.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's kind of a tug of war, right, between the East and the West. The so-called democracies versus socialist / communist
Yeah.
world. And there's a power vacuum. There's a struggle there, and there's a vacuum there that they're trying to close that gap, and they don't want to lose that ground, So that's why you have Vietnams and North Koreas and even the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I think there's a lot to lose there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
I think your dad was right.
Yeah, it's funny. As I've gone back and remembered some of our conversations, he had a lot to say about a lot of things, and I see a lot of truth in the things he said. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, what else do you think? Is there anything else you want to bring up about this film? Maybe any thoughts and impressions as we get towards the end of this
Well, they
episode
did.
here?
Well, they talked a lot about the. I like to talk about more about the the secret society / a part in there where they talked about the presidents and leaders of the world are just puppets.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. How they are just, and you've heard this before. I'm sure everybody has. They're just a mouthpiece to push whatever these globalists, whatever their agenda is. And I think it was Clinton, Hillary Clinton, said something about that pay along to play along or whatever it was.
Oh yeah, right.
I think that's in a smaller sense. That was in a smaller sense, but I think there's a real reality to that. You better play along with us, or we can take you out. We can destroy your economy. We can make China the next superpower, and you'll slowly disappear off into the dusts of time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting, and if people are really paying attention, if there's any truth at all to that, doesn't that kind of end the anger and the vitriol during a presidential election?
Right.
What are you getting so angry about if they're really just puppets? If you think about that and the reality that, it's going to happen the way it's going to happen. Cast your vote and just, we're just the sheep.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really does feel like that a lot of times. And it is interesting because you're right. They spent some time talking about these are temporary employees, right? President is 4 years, maybe 8 years. Don't read him into anything deep or really impactful because he's going to be gone in a short period of time. So let's manage him.
Yeah.
And then we'll get what we need going. Yeah, I think that's interesting.
And it is interesting that maximum 8 years, all of a sudden the people are worn out by those policies, so we have to go bring in the other guys.
Right.
I'm tired of the conservatism. Let's go ahead and bring in the left. I'm tired
pendulum
of the left.
swinging.
Yeah, let's do it. It's just back and forth.
That's crazy.
Nobody really has any power, and you can't really. There's no teeth in anything. It seems like just when you think the world's changing in this direction, everybody says, "Oh, everybody wakes up all of a sudden. We better go back over here, at least into the middle, because if we go too far this way, this is going to happen. If we go too far this way, this is going to happen. We need to be somewhere in the middle." And it's just a vicious circle. It seems to just completely replaying itself and over. It's like time is on it's like being rewound and replayed over and over.
Right.
Same arguments.
Yeah. Same thing, right? Like it does take a little bit of effort to step back and to see this. And but so many of us get caught up and we don't. So
for one instance, just one argument's sake is for instance global warming.
Yeah.
I think it was the first time I think it was mentioned was 40s, 50s. They said we had 10 years before the world's going to be underwater, right? We have to act now. and what are they telling us now? The world is on fire. I mean, I don't know what people believe in this, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I think you can believe what you want. Yeah, we shouldn't pollute, obviously. The sun plays a huge role on the heat or the cooling of the earth. It really does. Right. I mean, it's either if it's inactive, it's going to get cold. If it's overly active, it's going to get hot. So I think relax. You stop sending our billions and trillions of dollars to all these powerful people to just do whatever they want with that money anyway. They're not going to be able to fix a thing.
Right. Well, and I think the important part that we do on this show is to say, think broader about all these things, right? Because, one of the points about, for instance, the temperature of this world is there's cycles. Yep. Where this world has normal stages of warming and cooling forever. Yeah. So, and you can see that. So,
And the only reason I don't trust it is because of the money. If there was no money involved in it, if Al Gore didn't make billions of dollars going on his speeches and flying around in his jet when he's telling everybody to not fly in the jets, because all the carbon, it's just hypocritical and it's just fear mongering. Yeah. And I'm not trying to be political. I'm just saying, just stand back and see what's happening.
Right.
They're just taking your
eyes.
they're taking your money.
Yeah.
They're taking your money. They want your money, and they want you to be scared, so you'll give them your money.
Right. Well, in this film, they didn't go so much into that, but that's where we go, right? When we start thinking about these things.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get on a.
No. I mean, it's just very natural, right? To go think about these things.
Yeah.
So it's how we think and what we see. And I do think it's fitting because towards the end of this episode, they do spend time talking about, Hollywood media, deep fakes, hidden truths, and all that stuff, which fits into what we're kind of talking about. And they do end up that episode really jiving into this a little bit. And one of the big questions I remember towards the end of the episode was, who knows the whole picture when it comes to the UAP? Like, is there an entity or a group that really knows more? And why don't we know more? Why won't they share that? So
maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Maybe that's what scares them.
Maybe they don't.
Maybe that's why they're trying to distract. It could be much worse than they want to believe, or maybe they know how bad it is and they don't. I don't. Maybe because you've heard those sayings. Well, the fabric of society will completely fall apart. Religious institutions will completely be destroyed. I don't believe that at all because I believe it, but I think they don't. I think they either are aware, and it's it's so terrifying that they. I don't want to keep beating the same drum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's how I'm just saying that you were talking about earlier. It could be this or it could be that. It could be demons. It could be extras, but it could be that. It could be interdimensional beings. Whatever. If it is demons, just say humor me for 1 second here, because that's what I think. If it is that, is there anything more terrifying? Not to me. I'm not afraid because I have the Holy Ghost living within me because I believe in Jesus Christ as my Savior, right? So I know the end game in my mind. Mm-hmm. The Holy Scriptures tell me what the end game is, and people, if you would just investigate it for yourselves, you can see that why I might believe this.
All right.
Instead of just saying Ron's a complete lunatic. He's lost his mind. Oh, there goes another one of those guys, Bible thumpers. If you really investigate it, because I think too many people just don't even bother with it, because to them it's just too much. Maybe they've seen too many hypocrites claiming to be Christians that are just bad examples, and so therefore they just can't take it seriously because this guy is definitely. How can he be a Christian, and so forth? It's just about read it. If you're going to read Darwin or believe that an alien vessel dropped a payload on his way to these other planets, and all of a sudden all life. I mean, if you're gonna entertain that theory, entertain this one, and see what you would be very shocked what it says in Revelation and other parts of the Bible about this kind of very subject. And where it could be headed, and just look. I mean, if nothing else, is good reading, right? I mean, good writing. Right, I'm sorry, writing. It's good reading. It can be I believe it. You might be able to find it entertaining, but there is some there's some things in there in the Bible, in Revelation especially. I think it's Revelation 16 where it talks about the three. The spirits coming out of the Antichrist, the false prophet, and the dragon, and these demons, the demonic spirits that look like frogs, right?
What is that?
Going forth into the world to deceive the world and bring them into that great battle, right? Frogs. What do the Greys kind of look like? We have reptilians, right? Frogs have these little suction cups on their fingers, and some of these aliens that people, the Greys or whatever, some of them have had those kind of suction cups on their fingers, right?
Right.
I could see how John, in his vision that was being given to him, he's trying to interpret something he's never seen before. So he says, like a frog, because that's probably the only thing that he could think of. It kind of looks like a frog.
Yeah.
So we don't know that. I mean, that's a possibility. Maybe that's what we're seeing.
And I love that you bring it up because it is important. And you're coming from a place of faith, and that's what you're sharing. And what you're really saying is, if you're open-minded to look. Don't exclude this or that. Just because religion has been around for a long time. Like, we've had it, right? It's here. A lot of people just bypass that. They're looking for the new shiny thing. So,
and you know what else has been around a long time? Paganism and unbelief, right?
Right.
Atheism is not a new thing. It's just got a new name.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
Well, it's a good episode, and I think it's worth seeing, and it's only 23 minutes long, people.
What a good
You're going to get an action-packed 23 minutes that you can fit in anywhere in your day. So, well, let's go ahead and wrap this up with our thoughts on this episode. So, did you enjoy this episode?
Well, yeah, I enjoyed it a lot better, and these people are going to probably enjoy me droning on for the last 5 minutes. You know, this was a...
No, it's good.
This is just another fantastic episode. I'm telling you, all of them are like this. Every time, if we do more of these on this show, it's going to be the same. I'm going to probably I'm going to rate these very, very similar.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like, I feel like, once again, visuals were good, narration was good points. Like anything, there were probably things that we could argue and stuff about, but that's great. That's getting people to think and to look at this. So, yeah, I agree with you, Ron. Great episode, good subject, very good exposure for somebody, once again, who maybe isn't aware of some of the stuff surrounding the presidents and some of the power groups. I think this was a great episode to kind of expose people to it so they can think about it a little bit. Yeah.
I want... If you really want to get an idea of how these power elites / secret societies / bankers / powerful families that worked out through human history, go read a book called Rule by Secrecy by a man named Jim Marrs. I mean, can I plug? Can I do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
say it one more time.
Jim Marrs, Rule by Secrecy. I think this book's been around 20, 30 years. I'm not sure, but I read it a long time ago, and I think there's so much truth to it.
Yeah. Once again, peeling back the layers of the unseen and taking a look, maybe for the first time for a lot of people, what's really going on behind closed doors and in deep secret areas of these power structures. I think it's powerful to even open your eyes, because then you start to see more. Exactly. Well, okay. How are you going to rate this one?
5. This
Nice.
one, I think maybe just because of the content. When they started talking about the president being a puppet and the secrets, I mean, it instantly brought me back to how enthralled I was with the novel I just spoke out. It just lined up with that, and like you said, the fast pace, boom, boom, boom. Never was a dull moment. So I'm giving it a 5.
I agree. I am giving it a 4.5. Once again, very high. I don't normally rate stuff that high for all the reasons that you just said. And once again, you can fit it in real quick, probably during your lunch break.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's great. So there you go, people. That's our thoughts on the film, or actually the series, Alien Disclosure Files, with episode number 2, Take Me to Your Leader. So, Ron, thanks again for getting together as we chatted about this, and I know we'll be doing some more of these. And so, take care of yourself. And for everybody else out there, remember, there's a lot of strange and unexpected in our reality. So, remember to keep your eyes, ears, and minds open. And until next time we see you, stay safe.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.